Good morning. It's Friday, June 20th. It's 10:30 in the morning. This is the second of two public broadband committee meetings. The first one is a reporting meeting on the previous month, which would have been May of 2025. This is the discussion meeting where I have some things that are going on in the project that I want to share with the public broadband committee, ask for some advice, and give you updates on where we are with just a bunch of things going on with the project. I'm going to share my screen, which has the agenda, which I believe is the same one I sent out yesterday. So as we
Dave,
start,
sorry,
yes,
can I interrupt so is the Zoom recording as well?
the Zoom is recording on the cloud.
Okay.
Yes. Even though it didn't say recording, I think it's recording on top of the other recording.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right, Dan's here too. So we have 5/6 of the Public Broadband Committee. So as we start, we could do some introductions and the mission. So I want to introduce Matt Kinast, who's here. Matt joined our team, gosh, just last Monday, uh, almost 2 full business weeks ago, helping out Amanda with the accounting team, finance work as part of Dryden Fiber. Matt's here part-time. Matt lives here in Tompkins County and I think on West Hill. So we can't serve Matt with Dryden Fiber, but he's going to help us out uh, primarily with accounts payable, as well as, whether he knows it or not, assembling all of the reimbursement requests for New York State over the next 4 milestones, which in total will be over $9 million of reimbursement and maybe even more. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Dave.
And it looks like just members of the committee are here and a few other people. Looks like Cortland Standard's back. Hello, Cortland Standard. So why don't we start with our mission? We have a volunteer from the team to read the mission statement.
I'll read it, Dave.
Thanks, Graham.
Okay. Our mission is to provide reliable, affordable, high-speed, fiber-based internet access. We offer state-of-the-art technologies and unmatched customer service.
As one of our public broadband committee members who's also a customer, what's your experience along this reliable, affordable, high-speed, fiber-based internet first part of the mission?
I really enjoy the price, and it's been very reliable.
Good. Yeah, I mean, competitively wise, it's around half the price of other broadband providers, and from what we can tell from speed, up to 4 times faster. So pretty good exchange. The way we say this is this is a service. This is not a for-profit business. So we try to do everything we can to minimize costs and pass those right on to the customers who, for the most part, are taxpayers of the town of Dryden, or they live in the town of Dryden. They're renters. I want to cover a couple things today. One is this thing called, I have it called Anonymous Case 001. This is an amendment to a single easement for a property in order to provide service to a neighbor. I want to go over and try to wrap up the business conversations on the service level agreement and the credits. We've been discussing those. I put together maybe a final version of this to then send on to our attorneys for updating the service level agreements. Continue the conversation about the hardware provider. Calix has made themselves available for a conversation in the week of July 7th, and then a few other updates, including one on the MIP project as part of this agenda. So I'm going to start with this. It's called Anonymous Case 001. I put this in the right of access agreement in the meeting agenda, but I also put it on its own document that I shared with the town board yesterday. So this is a case where the only way that we can serve one of our customers in the green zone is to go through a utility pole in the backyard of their neighbor. This is how NYSEG designed the network to bring the electricity to this parcel, this home, many years ago. And since then, the person who owns the house that you have to go through their property to get to the prospective customer has found that their pole, which is right behind their house, um, now has electricity, and it's high enough. It's not disrupting like where they walk around or where they drive. However, um, it's between their house and their pool. It's like right in their backyard. Our only method to reach this home is to use the same right of way through this NYSEG pole. Now, given that the pole is in the person's yard, we've submitted our standard right of access agreement in full, and they said we have some adjustments that we'd like to be made to this. I've kept this anonymous on this document in this conversation because I don't know that we need to particularly name a certain location, the resident, the neighbor, the prospective customer. But I do want to go over the case and what they've talked about. Uh, okay with the broadband committee? That's the way to get started.
Yeah, I've read through it, Dave. It seems very reasonable to me. So, what they want to do. So it's basically if what I took from it was that if NYSEG moves their pole or redoes it, we would redo our fiber with that. So, and if the customer ends their contract with Dryden Fire, we would pull back the fiber off the poles. So, which would be a little more work, but it seemed fine to me. So.
Yeah, so I mean, each of these things, go ahead, Arthur, Jason, Dan, Tony. Okay. Sean?
Yeah, I got a I mean, it's a NYSEG poll.
It's a NYSEG pole in this person's backyard.
I I don't know, maybe Brad or legal that would have something more to say about it, but do they even have, I mean, there's already an easement. I'm assuming there's NYSEG already has an easement through there, and our agreement is with NYSEG.
Yeah, we tried using that argument and actually did the installation, and the homeowner came out and said, "Get off my property. You're trespassing."
Well, I guess do they have a right to do that if NYSEG has an easement?
We believe so because it's not like in the right of way on near the road. It's like right in the middle of their backyard. And in good faith of being good neighbors, we listened to them and said, "Okay, we will not do the installation until we at least have an access agreement."
Yeah, but sometimes you don't need to get along with your neighbors, Dave. I mean, sometimes they're just mean.
We're a different utility. We're not a utility. We're a service provider.
You are cracking me up, Sean.
I thought it would, I mean, I thought that NYSEG would have an easement. So I don't think they have a right to stop you. But
I believe in the NYSEG easement, and what happened was NYSEG did some tree trimming around their electrical lines on this person's property and dropped the tree limbs and the brush into the homeowner's yard, and including the swale. And then it rained and filled up the swale, filled up their backyard, and then filled up their house with water.
ooh,
So they renegotiated the easement with NYSEG to include what I have on the screen in their agreement with NYSEG. And they wanted to make sure that our easement or our right of access agreement matched what they already had with NYSEG.
I think this goes along with if you start doing negative things, it'll spread like wildfire. So much as I appreciate Sean's point of view, I think it's in our best interest to try to get along with everybody rather than piss everybody off in the town.
So there is some reasons. Yeah, thanks, Tracy. There's some reasons to do this and not to do this. One is this home is in the green zone because we can get to them through this connection. And we want to provide service to people who live in the green zone who request service. However, the installation costs on average is about $1,000. This person signing up for our silver tier, which is $45 a month. So the installation takes roughly $50 a month times $1,000, so 20 months to pay for the installation. Beyond that, the monthly fee they're paying pays for the ongoing service fees, the broadband, customer support, all the other expenses that we operate that you see in Amanda's budget slide every month. So if this customer decides they don't want to become a Dryden Fiber customer, we cannot keep the fiber line through this other neighbor's yard anymore. They're only allowing us access because they like their neighbor and they want their neighbor to have access to our platform. So there's a little bit of risk that we're going to make this investment and never recoup the cost of the installation. Now, our termination rate is less than 1%. So there's a chance, but it's a pretty low chance that this person will not maintain being a customer for the 20 months to pay back the installation fee.
What about
The other is,
Dave?
go ahead.
What about the scenario if the homeowner that we're going to sells their house?
If they sell their house, they are no longer a Dryden Fiber customer.
Well, but even if the new person wants Dryden Fiber, are they gonna say they can't be through their yard?
This person who has the pole really does not want the pole in their yard,
Right.
let alone additional networks. This customer is signing up for Dryden Fiber because they can't get spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
They can't get cable because I believe either they can't or don't want to follow this pathway that we're following. So this person, the customer of ours, the prospective customer of ours, is truly on an island where they cannot get service.
Right.
The other reason why this is a little tricky is when or if we do have to do any tree trimming or brush removal, we have to notify them, or any other repairs within, we have to give them 48 hours. So if there is an outage, if a tree falls on their fiber and it takes it down, we cannot immediately go in and fix it for that neighbor. We have to let the person with the pole know ahead of time. This is a non-standard process. Although we have not had this happen at all, our plan would be if there was a outage, we would dispatch immediately to fix it. For this one particular parcel and customer, we'd have to give them 48 hours notice. The town attorney was basically recommending, like, don't make too many exceptions to your right of access agreement because then it's difficult to manage these. If you have 8,000 parcels and each one has their own, you can do this one needs 24 hours, this one needs 48 hours, this one needs permission, this one, it becomes very unmanageable. And you have to work with your subcontractors very closely on every single parcel whenever a call comes in. So given this is a very rare case, we don't want to set precedents to having these changes all the time. But what we put together in this agreement was satisfactory to the property owner with the pole and the town attorney and the town board as of last night's meeting to create a pride service. There is also the last piece of this, the possibility that this person who signs this agreement so we can move through their property could also become a customer of ours. The town attorney did say before we sent this on to the resident, the owner of the land with the pole, to bring it to the town board for approval and review, and to bring it to the Public Broadband Committee for review, so you have awareness of this going on before we move forward. With that, I know you've had a chance to see it for a couple of days. Any questions on this right of access agreement with these amendments?
No questions. I kind of think we need to do what we need to do. I agree with the comments made earlier about, being good with neighbors and all that. I'm not so worried about the possibility of not recouping the installation cost.
Good.
Would this be the first non-standard right of access agreement? Or are there others that we manage?
We did offer an alternative one to a landlord property owner who had some tenants, but in the end, they signed the standard one. After many months of debate.
So this would be the first executed
Yes,
non-standard. Yeah.
I believe so. Tracy and Cassie have been monitoring all these. I don't think there's any other non-standard ones that we did send one out, but it did not get action, they took the standard easement.
Yeah, Dave, you're right. Every easement, every agreement has been the standard one so far.
And there's been quite a few that have questioned some of the language in there, but in the end, they just say, you know what, my tenant wants it, let's sign it and get them hooked up. So, it's there's only been like 4 or 5 that actually came back to us and said, I don't know if I like this language, but in the end, they've gone ahead and signed it. So,
This is also a unique case that this is an easement to go through their property, which, I mean, as Sean Scorzelli said from Syracuse Utilities, generally we have the right to use an ISEG poles if we've already done the permitting to use the poles. I actually can't think of another place in town where we do have to go through another person's yard to get to an existing customer. So it's a very unique case. I think there is one other case that I've visually seen where the poles are in someone else's yard, um, with the single purpose of getting to one single house. There are definitely areas, and Brad can talk about these in a future meeting, where the primary utility run for an entire street is behind people's homes. That's both in Dryden. You can see it along Morris Road. You can see it on Irish Settlement, and quite a few places in the town of Caroline. They ran the utilities through farmland that became developed into homes, or because it's the most direct line of path for the electrical poles. But this is the only case, and it's only one of 2 that I've seen in the whole town of Dryden where we have to use a pole in someone's backyard to bring our service to one home.
Dave, is it a renter that we're giving it to, or is it a permanent
It's a
owned house?
permanent
Okay.
owned home. Yep. And the neighbors are friendly. They like each other. That's one of the reasons why this person that has the pole is willing to do this, because they are friendly. They don't want their neighbor not to have the service, but they want to protect their own property too. You know, it rains a lot here. Water can cause a lot of damage really quickly, and they're trying to protect their property.
Well, and the house we're talking about sits, well, I know the property we're talking about, and it sits at a very low spot that can get runoff from multiple locations.
That sounds like half the houses in town, so I think it's still pretty
Yeah,
anonymous.
I know it is. Yep.
Okay.
So Dave, should we vote on this? Put it up for
We can call for a motion to approve.
especially since we don't have a precedent for this, and I think for setting up, if we're going to have changes to or specialized agreements, it should probably get approved by the board or not by the board. I mean, I think that's a reasonable way, and it will hopefully reduce people coming and saying, oh, I want one of these agreements if they have to go through this and the town board and other things. So, and yeah.
So the way that I think I framed this, and we can ask the town clerk for the exact language for Cassie to put in the notes. I call this MDU Property Owner Agreement Anonymous Case 001. This is the first one. So I'd be asking for a motion from the Public Broadband Committee to approve offering this specialized right of access agreement for Anonymous Case 001. That way we don't name the actual name.
I'll move that.
Thanks,
I'll
Tony.
second it.
Thanks, Graham. Any other discussion? All in favor from the Broadband Committee?
Aye.
Aye.
That sounds like 5 for 5.
and just
All
so
right,
you're
thank
all aware, this customer signed up July 1st of last year. So this has been a year-long project to get them connected.
It'll be good to get them online. All right, the next one, the business conversations. We talked about these a few times. I wanted to just make sure that as we look at the force majeure events and what it includes, and then what it excludes, as well as the outage time of 12 to 5 a.m. and the maintenance period, that the board, the Public Broadband Committee has a chance to review these one more time and then have a motion to accept this change first to the SLA. And we first did this back in early winter.
Mhm.
Any questions about this language or any other edits or changes or questions on how it would relate to our previous outages?
What if the customer damages something? Is that clear here? Oh, yeah.
Well,
If
that wouldn't be a force majeure event, right?
Yeah, I think that's not.
yeah, if they self dug up their own, yeah, we wouldn't be able to, I don't think we would give them credit if they dug it up on their own.
No.
Yeah, I just want
If
to
if they
clear.
failed to provide us with adequate access to the facilities for testing and or repair after they damaged it themselves,
Mm.
like they used the backhoe, they dug up their buried line, then they wouldn't let us on property to fix it. Then they said, "Hey, I've been out of service for 5 days. I want credits
Mhm.
back." Like this calls that they have not allowed us to make the fix necessary to bring them service.
Okay.
Am I right that force majeure events are things that are outside the control of both us and the customer?
It looks like it from the highlighted paragraph here,
Mm-hmm.
which is the fire, flood, storms, explosion, loss of
Yeah,
commercial.
yeah. It's like weather damage, right? That kind of stuff, right?
I mean, there are human elements, but they are outside of our control.
And the customer's control.
And the,
That's a little bit different than the customer doing something to damage a line.
that's right. Generally, if something like this happens, it's for many of these, uh, there probably will also be out of electricity and maybe other utilities too,
Possibly, yeah.
possibly. And it also, if these are substantial events that could cost us some time to repair, bring it back online, just as other utilities would need some time to do those repairs.
Right.
Right now, we don't have this language in the SLA. So if any of these or any other events happen to cause any kind of an outage in our current SLA, anything over 120 minutes would result in kicking into our credit policy. So if we want to do this, we could table it again, but I'd be happy to have a member of the Public Broadband Committee move this change to the SLA.
Can you just
I
bring
know
up the
the-
timeline number of 3?
What was that?
Can you bring up the timeline, please? The number 3 and 4, so we can see them. Maybe
What do you mean?
on page 3.
Oh, I was going to do the credits separate from this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about credits next.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know I'm not a member of the Broadband Committee, but this all seemed really reasonable to me. This needs to be in there so that you don't get screwed over the long haul.
No, I agree. It's fine. So
It's generally pretty standard when our broadband
Mhm.
law firm put this together. It didn't take them much time. It wasn't like they weren't involved when this was first drafted. I think our first SLAs came from another provider. that was maybe as green as we were and new. It's generally pretty standard for utility.
Do you need a motion to accept this language? Is that what you want us to
Yes,
do?
a motion to accept this
Okay.
change to the service level agreement, both for
Aye.
the residential and the business service level agreements.
Okay. I put a motion forward that we want to add the force majeure events
Language.
language.
So Graham's motion to add the force majeure language to both the SLA for residential and for the business tiers.
I'll second that.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, I think that's everyone from the voting members. Good. All right, well, let's talk about the next step, which is the credit process. So there are 2 slides on credit that we had in a previous draft. This is the updated discussion document. So the current policy is here in the second column, and between all the different options, the one that we got to by discussion and by talking to Amanda about actually providing the credits was this option 1A. And the highlights of this are there are no credits until 4 hours. It gives our teams a little bit more time to get out there and make the fixes to the network if there is an outage. From there, it is a 10% credit from 4 hours all the way up to 36 hours, which is roughly a day and a half. And then from 36 hours to 144 hours, which is 1.5 days, 6 days, it's a 20% credit. And anything beyond 6 days is percentage of monthly outage, percent of the month that they're out, converted to the credit. I also added in these columns to show what the actual cash value was. We had this drafted at 5% at one point, and 5% of $45 is a lot of work to give that credit for $2.25. So I up that to 10% across the board if we hit that 4-hour mark. To me, it's a substantial enough credit that it's visible. A 5% credit does not seem to have would have very little impact on the customer base as far as like, oh, you've done something for me. You gave me $2. That being said, as we previously talked about with returns, as in terms of the SLA and the credits, we've done a lot to the network to prevent the things that caused the previous outages that were that had happened. We haven't had one in quite a few months. We had a very brief one in February that no one knew about. We had a very small one that only hit one pop back in November. So we haven't had a full outage since last May when we lost Windstream for 4 days. So that being said, like there probably will be an outage in the future. That's just the nature of where we are. Could we repair that in 4 hours or less? Most likely. That's what happened in the windstorm we had back in March. If it does go over, there's some credits here. If it is extended, then we have a way to provide credits back to the customers, but also maintain ourselves as a business, especially if this happened widespread. And we fixed it relatively quickly, but outside of the 4 hours. This is the credit schedule I put together for residential. I have another one for commercial. We can look at this first, or we can look at that one separate. It's up to you as the broadband committee.
Yeah, so basically you're going to compress it. It's going to be from 0 to 4 hours, nothing, and then from 4 hours to 36, we'll get one set of credits, and then from 36 hours to 144, there'll be one set, and then after that, there's a percentage based on the outage.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm fine with
it
this.
does lower the credits. However, as it says here, at 32 hours, which is not even a day and a half, we're giving 50% of their fee back to them,
Yeah,
which is
50% of a month,
substantial,
right?
but
Yeah.
for a month's service of the monthly charge, it's a substantial credit back to them for less than a day and a half of outage.
Mhm.
That was the reason why we wanted to make this modification. We also didn't want to do a percentage of hours across the board because of the logistics of figuring out when outages started and when they stopped, and the tier and the individual outage percentage. Turned out being, again, very small dollar amounts for a very short outage, like a 5-hour outage. 720th of an hour of a month is very, very small.
It is. And it's a lot of work to issue a 50-cent credit.
The last time we did a major credit was 35 customers. Prior to that was 40. We have over 400 customers now. I'd rather have hired Matt to help with reimbursements from the state and accounts payable and receivable than to spend hours a week on credits. Again, in a very rare case that we have a situation where the network even goes offline where we have to do credits. We want to keep it as simple as possible for the team. And also offer some credit back to customers, which we would be doing, as we always have, for the customers without them having to contact us to say, my outage started this time, it ended at this time, I want to have this credit back. We will be managing the credits on behalf of the customer base to give them back to them.
And that part is highly unusual because nobody
yes.
does credits. It's like if you're out with Spectrum for 3 weeks, they don't care. They're not giving you a credit.
You can get one if you call and argue with them, but that's the only way you're going to get one.
That's right.
Yeah,
It's a
it'll
very
cost
reactive.
you more than it's worth.
Yeah. I like this approach, though, but remind me back, the force majeure language. If there's a widespread outage due to a storm, do we give credits?
Fire, floods, storms, explosions. So storms is on there.
Right. So let's
If a
say
tornado came through and knocked out the ring, the primary ring
Yeah.
network in 3 or 4 places.
Yeah.
And it meant the whole like if we lose one place, the network will maintain itself and go the other direction.
Right.
We have 2 breaks in the connection from a storm, and we're offline. We will need to get that repaired. But as we get it repaired, this force majeure language will cover us.
Right. Okay.
But if our switch fails, or 2 of the switches fails at 2 of the pops, then
we would owe. Then we would owe the
compensate
credits.
people for
Yep.
that. Yeah.
Yep.
That's right.
I got it. This I like the approach, Dave.
So we've made a slightly different change to the commercial account remedy ideas. Again, this is the recommendation, this column, the 4th column on this one. It has the credit amounts based on the standard tier, which is a majority of our business tier customer base. Right now, for business tier, 14 are standard, 3 are preferred tier, and 1 is the enhanced tier. So majority of them are in the $75 a month fee. So for this one, because they are a business tier, we would step this up 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% based on the outage timelines. We do have them tracked in our accounting system to know that they are our business tier customers. It's a bit more of a lucrative credit schedule for our commercial tier customers, but they are, relying on us for their business. So we thought we would increase the credit amounts if there's an outage. This column is the current version of the what we looked at in the previous slide for residential.
No, I think having it be a bit more enhanced is a good idea because it can have a much more negative impact on them.
Yeah, I agree with this schedule. I think
I mean, at the end of the day, like if a business is relying on the internet and they're out for 16 hours or for 24 hours, then $22 is not going to be that much of a impact on their business if they're offline for 8 hours or if they're offline for 8 business hours or 24 total hours. But they're only paying us $75 a month. So there's not a lot that we can do credit wise for that outage for what they've paid us. Basically, we're providing such a low cost service. There's not a lot to give them back when there is an outage.
Right.
We can go over and above what they're paying us in credits back. What we can do is say we are building, as Graham mentioned at the top when we talk about our mission, we're building a network that's sustainable, that's going to last long, that's going to be strong, it's going to be up and running, and it's going to be good for the customer base. That's the goal. And we want to make this schedule so that they can know that if anything does happen, we are thinking of them, at least in what they're paying for us for their service. Dan raised his hand.
Yeah, Dave, when we've had outages, have they been system-wide or are they more localized? Just if you could generalize on the outages that we have had. Is it affecting all our customers or just 10%?
So we've had four notable. In May of 2024, we lost Windstream, which was our primary connection before the ring was completed. And they were offline for, I believe, 4 days. All 40 customers at that time were offline from Sunday at 1:30 till Tuesday at 5:30 for 52 hours. The cause, as I said, Windstream was offline. There was no redundant backbone at the time. There was no secondary provider at the time. The resolution was to finish the entire backbone was finished in those 3 days we were offline. And then we actually added a secondary and a tertiary provider. So if any one or two of those go offline, we'll still be able to provide service. So that was the only time where we went by the SLA, where we had to provide credits to every single customer on the platform. 6 months later, in November, covered redundant power systems should have been in place. We lost the yellow barn pop it was off and on for about 24 hours. So the 35 customers who rely on that pop were off from Friday evening to Saturday afternoon. It was 22 hours. Resolution, the UPS was not configured. Now it is now configured. There is a generator in place. Long-term power generation is scheduled. That's still true, but we are much closer than we were when I wrote this slide a few months ago. We now have natural gas at the Freeville pop and the Pinckney Road pop. We have generators that will be installed there. So losing power will not be an issue at those two pops. For this yellow barn pop, we're bringing in a tank and a generator that will be fueled up so we can run. If we lose NYSEG's power, we'll be able to generate power from the generator substantially for a good amount of time and then refuel that as needed. So the cause of that one, definitely human error on our side that the UPS was not configured. So we did give the credit to those 35 customers. Third outage, Windstream went offline again in February, and no one knew. There was no impact because the ring is redundant and it switched over to our first light connection instantly. So customers would not have felt an outage. It's listed here as a part of it is an outage. We lost one of our providers, a backhaul provider, but because we have a redundant network, we have multiple providers, there was no impact to the customer base and no credits given. Finally, in March, there was that windstorm. There was a human error in that our scripting was set up back then where if we lost Windstream, switched to First Light, Windstream being our primary provider, First Light being our secondary provider. However, it was hard-coded that said if we lose our provider, either one, Windstream or First Light, then switch over to First Light. Well, during that storm, we lost First Light. So the script said, oh, we've lost our provider, switch over to First Light.
Nice.
It's a hard-coded method that was put in place when we only had Windstream, and to say, like, if Windstream goes off, switch over to a backup. That afternoon, it was a Sunday, with the help of Scott Brennan, I was able to go into the CO, go to the computer, update the script, and have it switch to if either one goes offline, switch to the other one, which fixed it. and it was back online in about 115 minutes, just 5 minutes under the SLA. So there were no credits offered. At that point, we had 300 customers. Now we have over 400. So software configuration issue, human error. We would have given credit if we had gone over by 5.5 more minutes. But in this case, we were able to resolve it under the 2-hour SLA.
That answers my question. Great slide.
You're welcome. Now that we have 400 customers, we've secured the network in ways that we haven't in any of these previous cases, by having a redundant network, by having the ring that wasn't there in the past, by providing power and backup power systems across the network at the POPs, and as well as updating the scripts to review where we are with how the network behaves if there is an outage of our backup provider. As we are expanding into Caroline, we will be adding 2 more nodes, actually like 4 more nodes, but 2 more POPs, 2 more places where we have electricity. One will be at Caroline Town Hall, where there will be a generator. And the second, we're still looking for a location. The first location we found in the initial view, did not have room for a generator and did not have natural gas at that location. They couldn't put a generator there because the size of the square footage was not big enough to include a tank. So because we've already learned this lesson, we didn't want to rely on just a battery backup for 4 or 8 hours and hope that that would solve any kind of an outage of electricity. So we are basically back to the drawing board to find the right location or the right power backup in case we do lose NYSEG's power connection. So learning from the lessons that we've learned in the last 2 years of outages, including with electricity loss, as we continue to build a network into Caroline. And Mark Whitmer, who's here, Town of Caroline Supervisor, has been instrumental in helping us to find a location that will not just provide the network service we need to build this backbone into Caroline, but also manage the power and manage the backup power as needed.
Yeah, hey Dave, can I just chime in here? So, yeah, so Dave did come to this Speedsville Fire Hall meeting and spoke to actually a very robust turnout of the membership. Described the evolution of this process and what we're trying to achieve. So that was really good. And they, especially the president, was really engaged with trying to make the site work in some way. So anyway, it looks like it's just not quite right. So we are looking for something else that provides adequate space for the equipment. And the last idea we tossed around was the Brooktondale Fire Hall, which is not in the same region of the town. It's on Valley Road, actually not too far from the highway department. But we were noticing that the routing of the network from Speedsville was going to, Dave noted that it would go to Coddington Road, which is actually closer to the Brooktondale Fire Department. So anyway, that's our question for broadband, the broadband expertise on the team to see if something like that, or but I think Dave there was one member of the Speedsville Fire Department who has a property nearby and expressed willingness to use his land. So I think, yeah. So we're looking for a site. And
yeah, the follow on with what Mark said, we've learned a lot with the central office that we have here, at our DPW and the 3 pops, finding this location for the second Caroline pop, the one that's not at the Caroline Town Hall, we're taking everything into consideration, including these outages and the power loss outages that have impacted the network in the past. So it's not just like it looks good on the map to have it here, it's the right place for it, but we actually have to have the right conditions to make sure that we can not just maintain a backhaul provider, but also the network and electricity. As we get closer to that, we'll let you know as we're making progress on that. One of many hundreds of details through the expansion, through reaching all unserved and underserved houses in the towns of Dryden and Caroline. Can I ask for a motion on the modification to the credit schedule as it's identified here on slide 3 and 4 for residential and commercial tier? Jason, thanks.
I will second that.
Thanks, Graham. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I think everyone voted, so I'm not going to ask. Motion carries. We will update these on the website after we have our legal team interject these into the document, and then when they get published, we'll let you know. We'll also send a notification out to our current customer base to let them know we've made an update to the SLA. Thank you. Okay. I guess 2 other things I want to cover. Calix is a provider of hardware services. We've been looking at them for about 7 months now. Right now, we use Sienna as our primary provider of switches in the POPs at the central office, as well as the ONUs at each individual house. And then we use a Plume device for Wi-Fi for each of our customers who wants to use our Wi-Fi device. This kind of started with the Plume devices not being strong enough for every house because they have a one-size-fits-all that they've offered to us that we've been using, where we have some houses that are larger or that have just spread out or that have brick or cement, and then we have to give them a secondary, or sometimes people have 3 of these Plume devices at their homes to provide basically a Plume-based mesh network for their house. Calix has a number of tiers of their Wi-Fi devices. They're called gigaspheres. And they can offer basically 3 different devices that we can then provide to our installation teams that they can then go on site. And when they do the install, they can say, based on your square footage and where you want the Wi-Fi device, we're going to give you this one. It will reach every place as the included Wi-Fi as part of the network, instead of having to let them start their service, be unhappy, call us back, have to come to town hall, give them another device that we charge them for, and then if that's still not enough, this gives it'll be a better customer service experience for the customer base, and also gives our installation teams more control when they actually do the installations. That was the first stage. The second stage of working with Calix was that we are almost out of space at the Freeville pop, and we needed to add another switch to bring in, I think, 32 more slots to continue to build the network north of Freeville to West Dryden, all the way up to the Groton Town Line, and I think even east all the way up to McLean. When we looked at our relationship with Sienna and what they were doing, we trust what they can do on the ring, on the backbone of the network. But as far as fiber to the home, we said we want to look at other opportunities, other services, and Sienna seems like a much better match. It's much more widely adopted across the board. There are other options. There's Nokia, which the town looked at back when the project started. There's also Adtran, which is used. So there are others, but we've made the most progress with Calix with a competitive end-to-end service product line that would help us with the growth of the POPs, growth of the network, all the way out to the individual homes with better Wi-Fi devices. The next couple of things we need to do is take a look at what the cost would be if we stayed on Sienna across the board throughout the rest of the build out in Dryden and Caroline, and then compare that not just for the homes, but also for the number of MSTs we need and number of ports we'd need in these devices in the POPs. And then compare that to a secondary provider like Calix. They've offered to have another hour-long session talk about their services and their products and why we might want to choose to work with them in July, the week of on July 9th or 10th. I wanted to open up to the Public Broadband Committee to join for that conversation and to just ask questions about where we are with Calix. Hopefully by then have pricing to compare a pathway forward with Sienna versus a pathway forward with Calix.
And Dave, have you had a discussion with the engineering company about this and what
Yes,
their recommendations are? And do they concur that in the vendor evaluations, or do they know of other vendors that we should be looking at?
Sure, Brad's on the call. I think Vantage recommended or said if we wanted to look at others besides Sienna and besides Calix, we could also look at Adtran. I also spoke with the president of Southern Tier Networks, Jeff Gasper, and they use Nokia. So there are other providers out there. These are, they tend to be complex and lengthy sales processes to go deep into doing a network design and analysis and budgeting. We can do that, but we have been prioritizing the MIP project and the resources around that first. However, we are getting to a place where we will either need to buy more Plume devices, more SANA devices for the ONUs, or an entire new switch for that Freeville pop. So trying to like figure out when's the appropriate time to have this conversation and get more detail. Brad, do you want to add?
And Dave, I was just going to add real quickly here. Dave kind of hit the nail on the head with the major players in the industry: Nokia, Calix, Adtran. And we're vendor agnostic at Vantage Point, but just kind of from what I see, Adtran, Calix are probably the most common in this type of space. Nokia, although they have been more aggressive in this space more recently, usually works more with AT&Ts and Verizons of the world, bigger bulk customers. But they have been dancing a little bit more in this space. Sienna is pretty rare in the access space. So you guys are unique. I do know of other clients that do it, but I would say of our client base, Adtran, Nokia kind of dominated. There was a company called DZS, Design Zone, formerly. They went Chapter 11, so they're no longer operating.
I think it's also
advantage
important. It's important to note that Netegrity, I think Netegrity handles 15 or 16 clients like us. Every one of those clients is using Calix except us, from what I understand.
That's correct. I think the number is 17 out of 18 or 18 out of 19 are Calix, and we're the one Sienna network. I mean, Sienna came in with really competitive pricing. We have the original proposals from all three providers from back in 2019, 2020, 2021, a year before groundbreaking. Sienna was trying to break into the market from what we've been able to learn and tell, because they wanted to be able to do the fiber to the home. They had been more well known for the network, building the network and not all the way down to the home. So the products like the ONUs, we've had some challenges with those last summer. Hardware updates that weren't being pushed out, or firmware updates, customer support and professional services that they weren't able to provide to us. Ultimately, Scott Brennan was able to basically hack together a solution with what we have with them, but they have not been the most experienced partner for us, if we want to say, because they just don't have the experience in what we do. Plus, they don't have a Wi-Fi device. They basically said, you're on your own, which is why we have Plume.
Do we have time to go through a RFP process, or? I mean, not in Make MIP, I suspect, is that?
It's possible. I've asked for more information from Calix about what and how we would use their systems, then take that and say, great, now we have a method to do this. But I think it would be pretty lengthy as far as the time and getting the resources back. But we can enlist Brad and the Vantage team to help us with an RFP process for this, if that's what we need to do next. Ideally, we would be able to line up and say, if we maintain the Sienna Plume method, here's what the next 3 years looks like for costs, equipment, timeline, service, their cloud services. And then if we went with Calix, here's the same timeline and the equipment we would need and the total cost of ownership. Yeah. Go ahead, Brad.
Dave, you're speaking my language. If nothing else, we could just engage Adtran and Calix and Nokia and just say, much like we did with Calix the other day, Dave, this is how many PON ports and how many sites we have. Can you give us a bid? Kind of more of a soft bid process, Graham, rather than a full-blown formal RFP.
Yep.
I guess I always feel that that's a good idea, and because you never know what you'll get back with that. If you don't ask, you don't know, and we want to make sure that we're making a reasonable financial decision as well. So
you may get Calix to sharpen their pencil a little bit too.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the key part when you do this.
Yeah, they have come down quite a bit on the Wi-Fi devices because of the number that we want to buy and the range we want. And so it's true. Once we told them what we were paying for other options that are out there, they came back with some better pricing.
Well, it's very competitive, so they need to.
Yeah. They did say that if we did go with, I talked to them yesterday, if we did decide to go with them, there's somewhere between an 8 to 12 week lead time on some equipment. So we need to plan far enough ahead of time to make sure that if we do make a switch, that we have enough of what we need to fill the gap until their stuff arrives.
Ouch.
Yeah.
How does that look from my concern? And this is the ongoing support. If we have a network that's split into two different.
So we would be doing a freeze and build process, which means the entire network that is in Sienna maintains all the customers that use Plume devices through Sienna, through the ONTs, that maintains. The switches still go to them. They go to the MSTs, then they go to those houses. Everything new is on the new switches going to other MSTs that then go to the Calix devices that then go to the Calix Wi-Fi devices. Right now, with 400 customers and equipment for 600 customers, we're not even at 20% of our planned goal.
Right.
If we're trying to have 3,000 to 4,000 customers, we're not even at 10% yet. If we have even more, the time to make the switch is really within the next 300 or 400 customers.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's one factor. The second factor that I did not learn until I think we had a call with them last week is that Plume has a cloud services workbench for customers to use. They have home security with motion detection. They have network security. They have parental controls. That's built into Plume. If you're a customer, and about 75% of our customers are using Plume devices, they can use those at-home services. On my to-do list is to find out from Netegrity and from Plume what the usage is actually like. I think it's pretty low. I think most of our customers are not using those cloud features. Calix also has a very similar set of cloud features for network security and parental controls. What I found out last week was that we can use our existing Sienna network, remove the Plume devices at the individual households, and put in the Calix Wi-Fi devices. They are agnostic of the rest of the network, the ONT or ONU, as well as the switches. And we can bring those customers into the Calix cloud services. That way we could advertise to all customers, if you want to use the cloud services, you can use you can use whatever one's available to you, Plume or Calyx. And if you want to switch from Plume to Calyx, eventually everyone would be on a single cloud services platform. Originally, it sounded like we could not do that, and we'd end up having the first 400 customers in the Plume environment forever. But that's not true. We can replace just Plume with just the Calyx Wi-Fi devices and the Calyx cloud services.
Dave, I'm not sure if this is correct, and maybe Brad would know, but I think that Scott Brennan said that we could actually use the Calyx devices in the home on the Sienna equipment at the POPs. Is that true? Do you know that, Brad?
So yes and no. No, you would still need a Sienna ONT or ONU at the house. But you could basically use the Calyx Gigaspire as the Plume device within the house.
Yes.
Dave,
Very good.
that
Yeah,
echoes what
Yeah,
Calyx
we can
told
use
us
the
last
Calyx
time.
Gigaspire at the house to plug into the Sienna network for the ONT all the way back to the Sienna switch. We can't use the Sienna switch with a Calyx ONT.
Yeah.
And we can't use the Calyx switch with the Sienna ONT.
Right.
So there would be some houses. Now, we talked about if we did a complete removal of what we have, it becomes very challenging because an MST, which has 8 to 12 ports, is going to be providing service to 8 to 12 homes. That's currently plugged into a Sienna device. If we switch that and plug it into a Calyx device, then we have to go and switch all the ONTs at those homes at the same time to move them over to the other switch in the POP.
Right.
It would be
Yeah, but if you can do the Wi-Fi side of it, that's the piece that people notice, right? The ONT, ONUs, they just know it provides network. They don't really see that.
That's
so
right.
It really doesn't matter.
The challenge on the installation and service is that if Eric's here from Clarity, if Clarity has an installation on, say, West Main Street or Dryden Road has parts of it that are already on the Sienna network. Future built parts of Dryden Road would be on Calyx.
Yeah, that's going to be the tricky part, is knowing which thing is where. And when a customer calls with a problem, understanding which, who's on what.
Yeah, and integrity should be able to solve that pretty easily. They'll know from oh, you're this customer, you're on this or that. For installations, when the installation company when Clarity goes to the house, oh, we're going to this MST. This one's plugged into Sienna. That means you're going to get this Sienna Plume install, or it could be an MST across the street that's plugged into Calyx. They're going to get the Calyx ONT and Calyx Gigaspire.
Right.
But over time, as we build out, more and more of the customers would be on the new provider, not the old one.
Right. Makes sense.
Ultimately, the end user experience is going to be about the same. I mean, Wi-Fi to your home through a fiber optic high-speed connection. It's just what's going to be the best hardware solution for us as we grow and scale across the two towns. You're all welcome to come to one of these. I can send out a poll for either the 9th or the 10th. The 9th is Wednesday, the 10th is a Thursday. If you want to attend, I'll send an email to the Public Broadband Committee. If you want to attend one of these, let me know when, and then I can schedule it with Calyx to get a time that we can all go in together and have them give us an update on where they are. All right, we have about 8 minutes left because I think this meeting goes to 11:30, but can go to 11:45. I'll give you a couple other updates. The INHS Varna project, we are still waiting for an update from INHS. The feedback that the Public Broadband Committee and Tony has given, as well as from other resources, has been helpful to the conversation. As I shared yesterday with the town board, it's a bit of a paradigm shift for a public housing project to think of not just providing the what, but providing the actual solving the problem. So the problem for these 53 units is uh, local TV and internet connection. That's the solution to provide. We can provide that service through broadband, through fiber, through whatever they want to use, YouTube TV or um, previous to this project, the mindset was we need to provide coaxial cable because we've always provided coaxial cable. It doesn't matter what we're providing for services at the end, but we always have to provide cable, coaxial cable. We don't provide that. We provide a solution to the communications challenge, not a specific type of connection to our customers. If the funders of INHS agree to this and say, you're right, you are providing the service that is needed by the tenants, not a method of providing that service, then we have a good chance of being the selected provider of choice for the project. It's a bulk rate project, which means they would be paying us a flat fee every month for service for all 53 tenants. Any questions on the INHS project? Okay. The last one, big picture on the MIP project. We have done a couple things with the budget. The first is we've learned over the last few months greatly with help from Vantage that the original budget was well under scoped in terms of the cost per mile, as well as the number of miles we needed to reach every home in the town of Dryden and Caroline that is currently unserved or underserved. So we have increased our ask for the project. Originally, it was a $9.9 million project. It's now $12.6 million. We've continued to ask for, we've asked for that increase. Within that increase, we asked for the full $2.6 million increase from the state. As of Tuesday this week, they seemed like they were leaning toward agreeing that to reach everyone, we were under budget. We hadn't constructed enough miles in our design plan. And they asked a few more questions. We've gone back and forth a little bit this week. But as of yesterday, we presented our final and best, like, here's everything in the request. And hopefully we'll have an answer by the end of next week and a grant disbursement agreement by mid-July, by July 15th. So increase in project size, more realistically based on what we're trying to do and achieve in the town of Caroline and throughout all the underserved areas in the town of Dryden over the next 18 months.
Is this holding us up any, Dave, moving forward with getting the engineering done? And
I would say
sound like it,
no.
but,
This isn't in particularly holding us up. I mean, the Vantage team is full speed ahead on mapping out how this is going to work. Already working on the permits. I think all the permits are in now. Maybe there's 4 more permits left. We're looking at some missing areas of Dryden 2 areas of Dryden that didn't have permit requests. We're working on those 2. Those should be submitted also around the same time by mid-July. I think we're getting some bid materials back to do the electrical make ready. As I may have shared 2 weeks ago, we expect to be breaking ground on the Caroline POP in October, and then construction in Caroline following that. We'll also be doing construction to build out this network under the MIP project throughout, I believe, starting in August or September, if not sooner. So full speed ahead on all these things as we work on this grant disbursement agreement.
And can I just ask where we are with really starting up construction fully in Dryden? Those things finished. Do we have?
We're making a lot of progress on the repair list. I think we're close. We should be done, I think, by the end of the month. We've identified some places where we don't actually have to do the repairs that we thought were needed because it was an overlash section. There's the team from Syracuse Utilities. Sean is here from Syracuse Utilities. They've been working on this, getting it wrapped up. We're waiting on some permits to get through so we can assign work that way. There's some network work being done to make sure we have enough fiber going out to some of these places where there was not enough fiber in the original design plan. There's some splicing work that has to get done where we already have stranded fiber hung on poles. We're working to identify some sections where we can test out some new processes that Brad and the team Advantage and I are working on to make that a little bit more efficient going forward. So a lot of stuff's happening. Some of it's behind the scenes because that's just where some things are acting. There's a lot of different individual pieces in the project. I think by mid-July we'll have the updated regions map, if not sooner, that shows the town of Dryden broken into 12 regions that are prioritized around the order based on the yellow zone that was on the previous map, as well as where we have permits already done, where we have construction started, where we have construction completed, where we have splicing started, so we can look at the second half of the year and kind of have some better estimates about the direction we're going in. It's been a lot of work to get a full picture of where we were, as well as providing everything satisfactory wise to New York State for the grant disbursement agreement.
Everything is just a couple tidbits here. Everything is still projected to be done by end of 2026. And the other thing is, albeit a little bit cumbersome the last couple months working with the state, Dave, you would agree that should, get several more $1 million though to make sure that this project is a success.
Yeah, it's we want to make sure that we want the state to make sure that what we get in this agreement is very accurate, that we're not reaching houses that are not there, but also that we have the right amount of money we need to do the project. As I talked about at the top of this part of the meeting, if we had followed the plan as it was originally designed, we would have been about $2.5 million short by the end of next year.
Cool.
There's a question in the chat regarding the timeline, construction. So construction, we have had some construction going on this winter, this spring. We're not quite in the summer yet. I think that starts tomorrow. We did add about 75 parcels on Route 366 in Varna. We finished off the western edge of the village of Dryden, West Main Street and Springhouse. We finished off the Yellow Barn neighborhood with Yellow Barn, Bear Circle, Scenic, and Chelsea. There is one parcel on Scenic Way that is yellow, which is why we haven't done a map update yet. I don't want to put beautiful pictures of the map being green in areas where there's a single parcel that did not get cleared through for light levels or access. Same thing is true in the village of Dryden. There's one parcel on West Main that's yellow that should be, I believe it's we can provide service to it. It's not even a house that is vacant right now, it's for sale. But instead of having this kind of leopard spotty areas of like, why doesn't this house have service? Trying to get those approved, get the map updated. We'll push those map updates out for Varna, Yellow Barn, and the western edge of the village of Dryden. And then continue. We should be working through that yellow zone pretty steadily throughout the rest of the summer.
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing some kind of detail on the splicing schedule.
I think we'll have that when we get these regions done. It's not just the splicing. It's areas that were waiting on permits, areas that are permitted that we're doing electrical make ready, areas where there's construction being done, fiber, strand, or underground work, areas where there's splicing, and then areas where there's testing. So we can get a lot more granular on across the board where we are. It's taking a lot longer than we expected to bring everything to alignment based on where we were on February 13th. Go, Tracy.
I said Hanford's coming. We'll get there.
Soon.
Yeah.
Soon. Yeah.
And I guess I would encourage, if we know that we've got things green, I would try and get those updated, even if we have, spots that can't. So, because I think from a public view, it looks a lot better that things slightly change rather than it's been pretty static for a while. And I think, although we've done a lot of work behind the scenes, but you have updated places and it's not reflected.
Yeah,
on the public map. So
when the map was updated 3 weeks ago, when I spotted these, I honestly thought the turnaround time would be 48 hours. and then it became 72 hours, and it became a week. Now it's 3 weeks. Um, I'm I wanted to give a little bit of time, but as you said, like a little bit would be better than nothing. And I'm trying to understand like how much time do I need to give to get these fixes done so I can do one update instead of doing two updates of the same neighborhood with one parcel. Um, Ideally, it gets approved before it gets published, or we see it before it goes live, so we don't have this weird gap. Um, Probably will publish these as they are per this request today or Monday.
Okay, great.
It's not favorable, but it also looks like, as Kimberly said, it looks like we haven't done anything, even though we've been adding parcels all winter.
Well, and I think, we're getting some public pushback because we have people that got postcards, we got people that got, updates on maps that said, oh, they would have it by the end of 2024, and here now we are almost July, and I mean, I understand being as close to it as I am. I understand why we're in the situation we're in, but public perception is, I'm never going to get it.
It will be there. This is all we do. If you're on this call, Brad and I talk probably more times than we talk to anyone else in our lives. Brad from Vantage, I'm spending tons of time with all the partners across this, from New York State, our contractors, our subcontractors, and trying to be there for the community, responding to emails and request calls as they come in. It's a big project. This is now probably around a $25 million project to bring fiber to every house in the town of Dryden, as well as the town of Caroline. There's a lot of work that has to happen to get that strand onto a telephone pole. It's surprising every day, I think, what has to happen to make it happen. And once it's there, you completely forget about it being there. I'm sure Graham doesn't think about it very much at all because it's just there.
I think
And so
that once
everyone
we
who's on
get,
this call who wants it will have that same opportunity.
I think that once we get started back up again, it's going to be amazing how fast we start doing things. That's what I'm seeing. The preparation is taking a while, but once we get going, I think we're going to be going like crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the reason there were many reasons to make this switch, but probably one of the more compelling conversations was that Vantage manages, engineers, deploys over 10,000 miles of fiber a year. Our project in total for both towns is under 300 miles. So when they looked at what we do and what we're trying to do, they were honestly surprised that this project started in 2022 and was not done. Like, there's no reason that should have already taken 3 years. It was just whatever reason we would want to say about what had happened prior to February 13th when we hired Vantage. We're on a different pathway now, and the speed, as Tracy said, should increase as we get things lined up, designed, all things that have to happen before we can roll the trucks out of here and do the installs, do the construction. And I'm also not a customer of Dryden Fiber yet. I'm like you, I'm waiting. We're working on it. Today is Friday, June 20th. Our next meeting will not be in 2 weeks because that would be Friday, July 4th. The next set of meetings for July and August, I'm pushing them out. I've requested by email. It seems like it works for most people with some issues for vacations. So the meetings in July will be on the 11th and the 25th. That's the second and fourth Friday of the month. Because of the way that July fits with the days, I'm also asking to push the August meetings out to the second and fourth Friday. That we don't have to have two meetings back to back on July 25th and then another one on August 1st. So the next four meetings would be July 11th and 25th, and then August 8th and 22nd. And then coming back like we did last summer in September, we'll go back to the first and third Fridays again.
I personally like that. Gives us some time to get stuff organized. That August 1st meeting would have been brutal.
Yeah, when we try to close the books on the month of July and report on August 1st, there's a lot of stuff that can't get done in just an hour. So we'll meet again on July 11th and 25th. The reporting meetings will be on July 11th and August 8th for the summer. As soon as I hear back from New York State about the GDA, I will let the Broadband Committee know with the new total dollar amount, the grant disbursement agreement timeline. Our expectation is once we have the grant disbursement agreement signed, the next day we will be sending in our first reimbursement request. As of right now, that schedule looks to be about a $1.7 million reimbursement request from the state.
Do we need to discuss the overlash, the Empire overlash at all, or?
Not right now. I'm
contracts?
still waiting on a
Okay.
contract and agreement. So once we have that from our law firm, we can talk about that at our next meeting.
Okay, great.
Right now, we're good with regard to what our attorney and their president said with what we've done. But we do want to paper that up. We should have something by the next time we meet.
So there was never a formal contract put in place for that?
I think that we would have to move to executive session to talk about contracts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Conversation.
You want to do that, Dave, or?
We can do that if Jason and Dan and Arthur
Yeah.
have time to do that for a
Well,
minute.
We're running out of time anyway.
Yeah.
I have a noon meeting,
Okay.
so I can't do that.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, we can follow up
But-
with an executive session after the next session or one-on-one. Give you updates.
Mhm.
Okay, great.
So, great.
But it's
Thank
going
you,
in a
everyone.
positive direction anyway, sounds like, so.
Yeah,
that's good.
it's very
Okay,
positive,
great.
right?
Perfect, okay.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Buddy,
Dave.
have a good
Appreciate
weekend.
it.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for everything. Yep.
Bye.